Okay, thank you. My name is David. I'm from the University of Pittsburgh, and this work is titled The Completion Effect in Charitable Crowdfunding. It is joint work with my fantastic colleagues Nicole and Tamar from Carnegie Mellon, and it is also the result of a partnership with Benevolent that actually won us the Partnership Challenge Award at this very conference last year. So we are first grateful for SPY support, but also thrilled to be back and share with you our findings, especially because this is ongoing work and we could certainly benefit from your feedback. First, working with Benevolent has been a pleasure and a very insightful experience for us at the researcher side. And we owe special thanks to Megan, who unfortunately couldn't make it, I believe, and also Lindsay and Emily. Is Lindsay here? Okay. They've taken very patiently time from their inspirational work to educate us about Benevolent and to answer all our questions and share a wealth of data with us. So we owe them a special thanks. Benevolent is an online crowdfunding platform where anybody can donate to individuals in low-income situations, and the money helps the recipients achieve one-time specific goals that may improve their situations. And these goals are things such as buying a uniform to start a new job, to repairing their car to be able to drive to work, to buying healthcare items such as eyeglasses or dentures or a wheelchair. In the website, you can see who asks for money, including picture and the first name, the purpose of the request, how much is requested, how much has been raised so far from how many donors, and how much time remains until expiration. Requests expire after 90 days on the website, and if the goal is not raised by that time, then the solicitee receives no money, and any funds raised are moved to another person with a similar request as determined by Benevolent. So here's some of the requests from last week's website. If we click on any one of them, so if we click on David's, for example, we see text describing David's request and situation. We could click to watch David himself narrate his situation. And if we scroll down, we see that the request is validated by an organization. And in fact, all requests are validated by organizations that partner with Benevolent for this purpose, and also to make sure that the funds are used for the specified goal. So if we go back to the top and decided to support David, we click here, and we're taken to the payment site. Yes?
Did you say that if the funds aren't raised in 90 days, the money is refunded, or do you say
No. So the money is not refunded to the donors, it's moved to another request. And Benevolent decides who gets that, not the donor. Yeah. So if we want to make a donation, we always are offered suggested amounts of 10, 20, 35, 50, 100, and 200. And that's going to become important in the analysis. But of course, we could also enter any amount we wanted. Our goal today is first to document what we call a completion effect, by which we mean that donors are giving significantly more money when their donations reach the amount remaining, and so they close the need. And we also, our second goal is to explore what is driving this behavior. That is, why are donors giving more to complete needs? First, let me give you a sense of the data. We analyzed all donations made from November 2011 to June 2014. These are about 3,500 donations, time-stamped by the second, made by 1,667 donors to 442 recipients for a total of about $250,000. And on average, people request $550, and the maximum as set by Benevolent is $700. I said this 90 days thing. All right. The average donation size is about $50. So the line here shows the monthly average as it has changed over time, and the bars below show the monthly volume, so the number of donations made every month, which we can see are increasing over time. And we can actually also see volume spikes on the months of December, which is something charities are familiar with. This table looks in more detail at how much donors give, and we've looked at the data in many different ways. So for example, each column here is a different model specification, a different way of analyzing the data. And what we find consistently is that on average, donors give between $40 and $60, but they give 2 to 4 times more to complete needs. And this is robust to excluding the most prolific completers who might be considered outliers. You have a question, Luigi?
Yeah, so how many of these are recurring donors?
Less than half of them are recurring donors. We have some interesting patterns between completion and returning donors, which I'm not going to talk about, but that's an interesting question as well. But this is also, so maybe to your point, if we look only at donors who make multiple donations, but at least one of them, one of their donations was a completion donation, and one of them was a non-completion donation. So if we focus only on this kind of donors, then we still see a large and robust effect. So this is also not an effect driven by a specific kind of donors that dedicate themselves to completing needs. So you have a question?
Can you explain again the difference between a completion donation and a non-completion donation?
So it takes multiple donations to reach a goal, right? So the completion donation is the last one that the recipient gets that reaches the goal, basically the amount requested. Yes.
What happens if you interact that with time? So you have 90 days. So if people wait until the last minute?
Yeah, I'll show you that. Yeah. Okay, so let me give you first a visual impression of this effect. So I'm going to do the following. As I said, needs take naturally different a number of donations to reach the goal, right? So for example, Kiala here, she's raised $335 from 3 donors. So let's imagine it takes 7 supporters to reach her goal, whereas Melissa, let's say it takes 10 donors, and Jenny might just use 5 donations and reach her goal, right? So the point is that different requests take different number of donations to reach the goal, and I'm going to group together all requests in the data that took the same number of donations to reach the goal, and I'm going to, within that group, look at the size of each of the successive contributions that leads to completion, right? So for example, in the data, there are 28 needs that took only 2 donations to complete, to reach the goal, and on average, the first donation is of about $75, whereas the second one is over $250. So the completion effect is the fact that the last donation, the one that completes the need, is higher than the other donations. In this case, the only other donation is the first donation, right? If we look at requests that took 3 donations to get completed, again, the last donation, the completion donation, is much higher than the other donations. Needs that took 4 donations to get completed, very clear completion effect. 5 donations to get completed. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I could go on 13, 14. I'll stop at 15. So very significantly and consistently, the last donation is much higher than the other donations. And this is not an increase in the donation size as funds accumulate. That's not what this is. This is a very last effect, the very last donation. That's this an effect. And so this accumulation of the increase in the size as funds accumulate, that's what psychologists call goal gradient. This is not what we're finding. And actually, this completion effect is something that is not new. Rick Wash from Michigan State University observed a similar phenomenon in another crowdfunding website called Donors Choose. So it's interesting that even across platforms, this effect is robust. So it means that it's probably something that is important and we should pay attention to. Yes?
Are there specific kind of donors, or it's like, are there like a few donors that might be the last one?
No. So I'm gonna try. So next, I'm gonna try to understand what exactly are donors doing. But it's widespread. It's not driven by a few donors. And in fact, so besides showing the effect, we want to understand what drives it. That is, why are donors giving more to complete needs? And we think there are at least 2 possible explanations. One of them is that donors fear or worry that the recipient they chose to support might not reach her goal, and so to avoid that and to resolve the completion uncertainty, they decide to give more themselves and complete the need. Alternatively, it could be that donors get a positive feeling from making or a heightened feeling of having an impact on the recipient by completing their goal, and so motivated by this feeling, they give more. Right? And we don't think that fear of non-completion is driving the effect, because benevolent success rate is exceedingly or exceptionally high. 94% of the requests on the website are successfully funded, and this is stated on the website, so presumably donors know this. But also, needs are completed much before the expiration date. In fact, on average, there's still 37 days remaining till expiration when the requests reach their goal, and only 10% of the requests remain active when there's only one day remaining, so on the 90th day. And we don't see an interaction last day effect. That is, we don't see that the completion effect gets any larger or smaller if the completion happens in the last day. Right? So this suggests that donors are not afraid or they're not giving more to complete needs because they are afraid that the need will go unfulfilled. We don't think this is happening. We do think that donors are getting some positive utility from completing needs, and this manifests in the data in two ways. So we see large capacity donors wait. So donors that make large donations, they wait a little bit longer. We think because by waiting, so if they see that the request has received enough support, they make their donation, and they can complete it, so perhaps they feel more impactful that way. But we also see that regular, smaller donors, they give more than they normally would when they see that by adding an extra amount, they can complete the need. How do we know that large capacity donors are waiting? This table looks at the number of days it takes for any donation to be received since the need has been posted on the website. On average, donations arrive 35 to 38 days after the need has been posted. But large donations, which, by the way, we define as donations higher than $200, just because that is as you may remember, the highest suggested amount, those large donations take an additional 5 to 8 days to be made. And since we don't see that donors, or we argue that donors are not afraid of the need going unfulfilled, we think that by them waiting, they wait until the request gets enough support, so that way they complete the need and perhaps feel more impactful. Similarly, we see that donors that give regular amounts of money, they add to their donations by doing so they can complete the need, and these graphs show that. So regular donations are just donations equal to 200 or less, and the bars here represent the frequency with which a specific amount is donated. So the top graph is donations that are opening donations. That is the first donation that any recipient receives. Right? And so as you might see, we see spikes at the suggested amount. So 10, 20, 35, 50, 100, and 200. We also see a big spike at 25. It turned out that 25 was a suggested amount prior to December 2013. So donors making opening donations, 88% of the time, they follow a suggested amount, and the median donation is 25. If we look at donations that are not opening, but also are not closing, so every other donation except opening and closing donations, we see exactly the same pattern. 87% of the time, they follow a suggested amount. The median, again, $25. And these are the completion donations. So much fewer following of suggestions, only 38% of the time. And this, by the way, is expected, because as the recipient gets more funding and we get closer to the goal, naturally the amount remaining is perhaps some odd number that is not a suggestion, right? But what is not obvious is that the shift is upward, and very significantly. The median is now $65. So this means that donors, when they complete the need, they stop following suggestions and they add to the amounts that they would normally give. So just as a synopsis, in the crowdfunding website Benevolent, we observe that donors are giving significantly more to complete needs. And this is driven by two mechanisms: large capacity donors waiting until they can complete the need with their large donations, and regular donors stop following the suggestions and they give more than they normally would when they can, by doing so, complete the request. This is not driven by fear that the needs will come fulfilled, but we argue that actually it's because there's a heightened feeling of making an impact on the recipient if you complete their need. Given our findings, there are many questions that we are trying to answer, many of them related to what we call mechanism design. So for example, can we use this effect to design a better way to ask for money, or do we actually have already in place an optimal or near optimal mechanism? And also, are there other ways that we can induce this heightened or this feeling of having an impact beside the completion effect? I'd love to hear any thoughts if we have time. Thank you. Do we have? Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to present tomorrow a finding which is very similar, but it's in relation to the targets, which are purely notional and non-binding. So it's just the fundraiser set the target, which isn't linked to any sort of benefit for the recipient. So there is just a sense that donors want to hit the target, even if it's meaningless. But in my data, I find only male donors who want to do it. Male donors want to hit the notional target for the sake of it, but males don't. So I was just wondering in your data whether you have any
that is interesting. Yeah. So I cannot say anything definitively. So our data from Benevolent doesn't include much information from the donors. We actually purchased some data from a third party that from emails, they give you data on the donors. But we don't know how reliable that is, and we don't have data on all the donors. But I will look from what I have at this. Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, thank you. Yes. I'm sorry?
Create a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
That's also, I think, helpful in getting people to donate.
Yes. So
It's not exactly completing, not necessarily completing the amount, but the time limit has an effect as well.
yes. So as part of the information donors see before deciding to donate, there is the amount, the time remaining to the expiration, and they can see if there's urgently needed the funds or if there's still many days to. And most donations are made way before the expiration time. Yeah. Yes.
I think the results will be different if the donors get to reallocate unsuccessful.
Well, so it could be. I'm not sure how they would change. Again, since my impression is that because they don't fear that the person will not reach their goal, they might not worry too much about what happens if their donations go to a different person. But I could certainly see that having an effect. I don't know exactly how. Yes.
They didn't try to include a part where you can complete everything. Like you don't. It would be interesting on top of say the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
to have one saying this is the amount.
I see.
Closer to
Yeah. Yeah, so that will be even more of a push to completion, because they could definitely enter the amount. They see how much the amount remains, so they could enter it. But perhaps if we push it even further that way.
It could be sort of an implication of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, I see that. Okay. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.